Hello, welcome along to Bangkok Chitchat, and today we have got a special guest. His name is Barry Upton.
Hello.
Now, before you start, Sussex boy.
Yes.
Oh, that's where I
Originally.
come from. Originally. English songwriter, arranger, musician and producer of various forms of pop music. He's also an audio engineer and stage performer, having appeared around the world in various capacities. He now lives in Pattaya, Thailand, where he continues writing, producing and performing music. In addition, he is the executive producer for radio and TV at Pattaya People Media Group and has been presenting the morning show for ages, 96 FM.
That's it.
Since 2010. So, Barry, welcome along, mate.
Nice to be here.
God, where are we going to start? We're going to talk, obviously, about the Brotherhood of Man, which is what most of you guys will probably recognise. But we want to go first. Were you a music child? What were you like when you were a kid?
Well, how I actually started was when Top of the Pops first started. I had a little...
when was that?
Oh, it must have been 63, 64, something like that.
Yeah, it's in black and white.
I had a little armchair, my sister's little armchair. I found that if I put the armchair in front of me and I arranged the cushions and we had these two big pencils, I could be Dave Clark and I could go bang out like this, on the drums. Then I found that our fire guard sounded a little bit like a hi-hat, so I bought that out. My parents were in hysterics every Thursday night when Top of the Pops came on. Doing this, and I learned a sense of rhythm from just doing it.
So you were really young then, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, 25.
No, about 9, something like that. 9 or 10. Yeah.
And then when did you start really thinking that it was a calling?
Well, my mother during the war played accordion in a band.
Oh, my father used to do that as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it was magical because she got it down from the loft. One of my earliest memories was her getting this accordion down from the loft and playing it. I'm going, how fantastic is that to be able to, play a tune on something like that? But then I realised that, that's going to be too big for me. So can I have piano lessons? So I went for piano lessons.
So you actually asked for piano lessons?
Yes.
Because normally, we know how it goes with mothers normally.
They push
and kids. They push you. You asked for it.
Yes, and I learnt like the Blue Danube and a few things, and I found that I had a good ear.
You enjoyed it as a kid, because a lot of it, you feel forced and you go,
well, he asked for it, so he's not going to diss it,
we'll go through lulls, isn't it?
Yeah, I did get bored with it after a while, I have to say, but as you grow up, you change. But
when you discovered girls.
Well, that's one point, yeah. But we found that when I went on holiday, there would be a talent competition. I'd just go up to the piano and just play something by ear.
Playing by ear, right?
Yeah, and win every time. So,
did you learn any at that time writing music? I mean, like reading music, sorry.
No, yes, well, I had to read music because I was being taught by our local church's organist.
Okay.
And that was part of it. Which was invaluable, absolutely invaluable. Yeah. And then I took music to GCE at school.
It was a Royal Academy of Music, wasn't it, in those days that you used to...
Well, you could do. I didn't go that far.
Oh, okay.
I only went to GCE.
Yeah.
But there were certain things in that GCE exam which, again, trained your ears, like knowing the difference between one note and another. So, again, invaluable. I've been using that my whole life, listening to music, and I can work out what the notes are just by listening.
So what was your...
I'm so jealous. Because I used to go for guitar lessons as a kid.
You used to play the bagpipes.
And we'd have to read music, and I just couldn't get hold of it at all. No. So I just stuck to the basic.
Well, that's the God-given thing that you have inside you. So what was your first job?
When I left school, I was at Vauxhall Motors. Because I was in Luton by then, my parents had moved to Luton because that's where the work was.
Luton, yeah.
So it's a nice place to come from, not so great to go back to. But at Vauxhall Motors, I then got into a band and started playing at weekends.
Vauxhall band, yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't a Vauxhall band. It was just a young
in
kids,
pubs and stuff, right?
Young kids band, in workingmen's clubs.
Yeah, okay.
Playing Jim Reeves and things like that,
Please, no, what was the Jim Reeves number?
Please release me.
I thought it was Engelbert Humperdinck.
But he did that one,
yeah. But it's the same thing.
You'll have to go.
That's the one. Yeah, Frank Ifield and all that. Yeah. So that's what you did, like a 3-piece, 4-piece band.
Yeah, it was actually a sort of a bunch of young kids, and there was an Irish guy that was managing it, and he'd take us around in the van and stuff, But again, I learned so much from that. But at the same time, earning money from Vauxhall Motors. But then I eventually started my own band, and you used to have to go to college as part of the training, the part of the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So
Day release, I think.
life suddenly became great because I'm at college and I had my band at the weekends, and I was having so much fun.
Yeah. Okay.
So, if you look at a band or something, who sort of inspired you to sort of, you went to this one with all your mates,
Jim Reeves,
and really moving forward and
Yeah.
taking things a little bit more seriously. Who's your sort of inspirational band?
The Beatles.
Really, I've never heard that before. Did you actually see the Beatles ever?
No, but I've met one of them. I've met one of them since, actually, in Abbey Road Studios, in this studio where they actually recorded.
Which one?
But Paul McCartney.
Oh, right.
That's the only living one. Oh no, it's Ringo still going. Yeah.
But there was one magical moment which was quite pivotal to me actually starting my career. And that was, I don't know if you remember the early bird satellite when it went up into the air and suddenly they could beam pictures around the world.
Early bird. Now you.
And
Yes.
there was a panorama program called Our World.
Yes.
And the UK's contribution to that was the Beatles recording All You Need Is Love in the studio.
Da 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 da. Yeah, go on.
And I looked at that and I went, wow. I just couldn't believe I was watching it. That's the first time.
What age were you?
13. And I couldn't believe I was watching the Beatles recording their new single. And I was just stunned. Little did I know that would be my life for the rest of it.
So from there, you stopped producing Vauxhall Victors, and then did the sort of the nighttime thing become more financially okay? And that's what made you go full time.
Well, I had a big argument with my father because he wanted me to stay at Vauxhall, get a pension, have a safe life.
Yeah. That was the story back then.
And
I
I just remember thinking, I don't want to do this. I actually want to have a happy life, So I made a deal with him that I would complete the apprenticeship and go to the age of 21 and finish the 5 years. But then I'm turning professional. And then I've got something to fall back on if it doesn't work.
Cool. Yeah.
But
Sensible.
I never went back. It just worked.
I was thinking
It worked
sensible,
straight
then
away.
it wasn't sensible.
Okay,
But
so
it wasn't, yes.
we got to jump a lot because, as
Okay.
I say, because I'd love this thing to go on for hours and hours, and there is a big gap there until you got noticed. Because I want to see the Brotherhood of Man, okay, the Eurovision Song Contest. You know the Eurovision Song Contest, right?
Yeah. That's the one where everyone says it's all rigged.
Well, I mean, to explain to our viewers that don't know, because they're not all from Europe,
Sure.
correct me if I'm wrong. It's a group of countries, whether they're in Brexit Europe or whatever it is now, and they all put forward a band, a song, an artist or whatever, and then an international panel vote. I always see point. And there's been some really big artists that won it, that went through. ABBA were the biggest one, which is linking me with now the Brotherhood of Man, because I always thought there may be a bit of a nemesis
Very
thing
similar.
going on there. Yeah. And I think, what was that? Something on a string, Puppet on a String?
Sandy
Wasn't that a Eurovision song winner?
It was a winner.
It was it? It was a winner. Yeah. Anyway, so Brotherhood of Man, they formed in 1969, if I'm correct.
Yes, but in those days, what used to happen, there was a lot of session singers around. And so a songwriter, which was the manager of Brotherhood of Man, Tony Hiller, he co-wrote with Johnny Goodison, United We Stand, Divided We Fall. So in those days, they wouldn't actually form a band, they would just get session singers to come in and sing it.
That was a great song, wasn't it? And United, I still can do it now, and I haven't heard it for years. I
massive.
still know how to sing it.
Massive.
That's a pop song whenever
It
I
was
heard one.
such a
and
big
United
seller.
We Stand, I can't remember.
And so many acts covered it as well.
Yeah.
But the original Brotherhood of Man were Sue and Sonny, session singers.
Okay.
There was Tony Burrows, who sung with Edison Lighthouse, Love Grows When My Rosemary Goes, and White Plains.
You play that.
He was in the Flower Pot Men with Roger Greenaway, and
Brilliant. California something.
This is
wasn't
what
it?
used to happen, in those days. So after a few hits, Brotherhood of Man hits, suddenly he's got no band to go out on the road, to tour, because they're all session singers. So then he put together what was the Eurovision winning lineup.
Okay.
Which was Martin Sandra,
Martin
and
Lee,
Session
Lee
singers
Sheridan.
basically people are brought in for that particular song, but they're not a permanent part of the band.
They're studio musician sessions, aren't they?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. As I say, like Tony Burrows was on 5 records in the chart at the same time.
All right, okay.
Yeah, you get like bass player, and he might go on the latest Phil Collins album, but he's a studio.
yeah.
But sometimes they call these guys out on tour. because they haven't necessarily got a band.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Phil Collins band. It's Phil Collins and so-and-so, so-and-so. So that was with Nicky Stevens, Sandra Stevens. Okay, all right. So that was the second lineup. And that. So when did you join them?
So what happened was Martin and Sandra were married to each other.
Secretly.
No,
says
quite
it here.
publicly. Oh, really?
Yeah, it says it here that they didn't publicise it because they thought it would spoil the image of the band.
Oh, well. Yeah, mate, that's...
Give it 5.
You just taught me something. I never knew that. And Nikki was...
They do now, though.
Nikki was married. Her husband
married.
played guitar in the backing band.
Yeah.
And Lee Sheridan had a family. He was the only one who had a family. So at that time, after the Eurovision, I mean, they exploded. They had 2 more #1 hits, Figaro and Angelo, and then touring all over the place. He was never at home. So he was getting some earache from his wife. Our kids are growing up and you're never here. So he said, he didn't really have an argument with anyone. He said, if you could replace me for a few years, I'd really like to bow out of the group, which is exactly what happened. And at that time, I'd been touring around. I can fill in that little gap for you, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
I was touring around Europe with my band and having fun, going to Scandinavia and Italy,
Berlin.
and just having an absolute ball, you know.
Yeah.
And then I settled down a little bit more and got with a Mecca band, so I stay in one place. Mecca. Remember the Mecca days?
Wimbledon.
Yes. Well, I spent 2 years in Wales with a band.
You're on that circular stage.
It teaches you so much, you know. Touring around teaches you a lot. Staying in one place with a resident band also teaches you a lot. And then I decided I got fed up with Wales and I wanted to come back up towards London and start writing and getting a little bit more serious in the business. So I ended up at Bailey's in Watford.
Know it.
So at that time, there was 2 things that happened. One was that I was in a studio with Wayne Bickerton. I had a studio. He was the manager of the Rubettes, wrote the Rubettes songs. And he had a fantastic studio in Marble Arch called Odyssey Studios. And I was signed to his record label. It's my first signing. And I would get the downtime if there wasn't being used in the smaller studio.
Yeah.
And in the bigger studio, every day there would be someone like The Who or Kate Bush or
The people that had made
Thomas
it.
Dolby. They were using the big studio, you know. And I would always just pop in and say hello. You know, you mustn't miss those opportunities. And one day it was Brotherhood of Man, and I walked in there and I thought, Brotherhood of Man, you know. And I said hello to them and they looked at me and I didn't look unlike Lee Sheridan.
Yes, I know. You had the hair thing going on, right? With I've seen the pictures.
Very similar.
It's just a little bit shorter now.
But and they know that I'm writing and I know that I'm recording in the next studio. But then a few weeks later, they were the top of the bill at Bailey's in Watford. And then I remember Martin, he was up in the lighting gantry taking photos. And I was on stage and I'm playing and stuff, you know. So I was the ideal replacement. They suddenly found their ideal
Looked
replacement.
good, slim, had the right hairstyle.
So they asked you on
sing.
the basis of, they also knew you had the skills, but because you looked like the guy who just left.
Well, it was
Similar.
Yeah.
I was a little bit taller, actually.
But don't forget, in those days, it was all about imaging. You know, and he fitted the image as well.
And also, I could
play.
write, because one thing that a lot of people don't realise with Brotherhood of Man is that they wrote all their own songs.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to talk about writing in a moment. All right. So I just want to. So you went on tour with Brotherhood of Man?
Yeah, so I went into for an audition and thinking, it's just Brotherhood of Man, you know. I mean, it's dead easy.
We all thought that.
These songs are so simple, and you know.
Yeah.
And they asked me to wait outside the office, and 5 minutes later, I'm in the group. And they said, you got 2 weeks to learn the act, and then we're on tour with David Soul. So I went.
You mean learn the act, but learn the playlist?
No, well, learn
And they did
the dance routines
Oh, yeah, the
and the
dance,
whole
didn't you?
cabaret.
Yeah. The flared trousers. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a whole show.
Don't you,
Yes,
would your
yes.
manager have to speak to their manager for
I
you
did
to
have
join?
a manager.
See, he hasn't mentioned the manager
So how did you
at the moment.
get to the point where you agree to join them? You don't know what money you're going to get or
Yeah,
anything
they
else.
straight away put me on the same as the
Yeah,
others.
do you make a lot of
Wow.
money? Do you make a lot of money? How much do you make a week?
Can't tell you,
Go on, tell me.
but enough. I think
For
it's,
them.
it's
But you get royalties even now, yeah?
Not so much from Brotherhood of Man, but from later things I did after that. Yeah.
Yeah, when he started to get an accountant.
But let's put it the way. As far
It was fair.
as far as the music business was concerned, I went from there to
so
there.
it was worth it.
Fantastic.
No, I'm not being, because how much he'll tell me afterwards.
No, but the reason I'm asking is you hear so many horror stories.
Yeah.
Even from the Beatles.
I was
or even
treated
from the,
really well,
that's
very
good,
well,
good.
and that's all down to Tony Hiller, the manager,
Right.
who passed away a couple of years ago. But all through my career, he's always been like my favourite uncle. And he's guided me all the time. We've written together. We've had hits together. Outside of Brotherhood of Man, we've had hits together. So he was a big central
So
part.
when you were, the last question on Brotherhood of Man, was it more like a cabaret show or a concert?
We could do both. That was the great part, is we could do a concert, and we did one in front of 40,000 people in Malta.
Yeah.
We could do the cabaret circuit and go on and do a full show, and it was all of the steps on stage.
Did you,
worked
we
out.
need to talk about Steps, the band. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Steps. I do, because I used to play them on the radio. Big bloody band.
Unbeknown to me when I put them together, it was just, you never know, do you?
God, and what was your role in that?
I created them.
So you were manager,
I not so much manager, because that's on a day-to-day basis.
but you created them.
When you said Steps, I was thinking of cabaret Steps.
Yeah, he's jumped forward.
Of course he would.
He's leapt forward.
Yeah, come on. You don't forget, I'm that bit younger than you.
Yeah, sorry, because it's on here. Because Steps is, we just missed the question, because Steps
Who's Steps
was a
and what
big
kind of
band.
music did they play?
Well, they were similar
Well,
to...
the thing I wanted to tell you was the fact that when that they accepted me into the band, and they said, right, you're in the group, and I went, oh, just like that,
Yeah.
And I hadn't really had time to think about it too much. So I thought, well, they're not one of my favourite acts,
No. They weren't a lot of people.
But I went back to my mother's, and I said to her, you're not going to believe this, but I'm now in the Brotherhood of Man.
Cool.
And she went, one of my favourite groups.
Yeah, there you go.
And I went from, all of a sudden, my attitude changed. I thought, right, I'm going to do this.
See, some people would have said, oh God, my mum likes them.
It's like
No.
No, it's like playing for Crystal
Because
Palace.
I had that thing with my father, which my mother kind of supported him, where he didn't really accept the music business as a career. Now she had to accept it.
Oh yeah, you were the man, bro.
It's
You were the
suddenly
man.
her whole attitude changed, especially when we used to rehearse around each other's houses. So when it was our turn, I was living back with my mother for a while, and I converted the garage into a small studio. So she had Brotherhood of Man in her garage.
I know.
She's making sandwiches and tea. And
I would be proud of that as well, to be honest. So the Brotherhood Man was going on. Where was Steps in this whole thing? Was that
was much
afterwards?
later.
Much later.
That's 97.
So you then left Brotherhood of Man? What?
Then I became a DJ.
Yeah.
That was in the mid-80s.
Why?
Because what
You're a
happened was...
musician. Us DJs we always think you're the gods. You're the artist. We play your stuff. And then you just,
think back to the mid-80s, and I think you were kind of a DJ about that time.
I came here in the mid-80s. Yeah.
So what happened was there was a little shift that went on in the mid-80s, right, where all the cabaret clubs around the UK, where you would do a week here, you'd do a week there, Talk of the North, week at Blazers, week at
Blazers.
Lakeside.
Freddie Starr saw those Blazers. Yeah, go.
And that would make up a good 6 months of your year. Then you would do
and your income.
Yeah, and you do odd shows, and
Yeah.
Well, that started to fall by the wayside
Yes, it
because they
did.
were turning into themed discos.
Bloody disco, which actually I'm
So we ended
very
up
happy
doing
to have
summer
had.
seasons, and we did a whole summer season in Bournemouth, which kind of like, once we'd done one, we thought, and we were offered our own show in Blackpool, and I thought, I didn't want
You
to.
never did Jersey, did you?
I have done Jersey, the Flamingo. I did do that in 1977.
Okay, this is too much down memory lane.
But we didn't really want to do it.
No, I get it. No, because it's
So we
not
said,
the big
well,
stage,
let's
is
just
it? It's
quit
not
for
the
a
big
while.
stage.
Let's
yeah.
quit for a while.
Yeah.
So I thought, what am I going to do now? And the manager at my local Mecca Tiffany's, who I was playing squash with, he called me up one night. He says, "Are you doing anything?" He says, "No, one of my DJs hasn't turned up. Can you just go?" I said, "Well, I don't know how to DJ." He says, "Well, just come down and just mess around
Because
a
it
bit."
wasn't mixing back in those days.
And I was like using the other DJ's records and just messing around and not taking it seriously at all. Anyway,
Giving a bit of this.
I was just making fun of the other DJ mostly, but the manager loved it, and he says, "Right, you're on next week again. I'm sacking." the guy who didn't turn up tonight.
Yeah.
So I did it for a few weeks. Then the regional manager came in, and I heard, oh, he wants to see you in the office. Right, because I'm not taking it seriously.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And also, sometimes he had me in on a couple of nights where I was working with the band. And the thing is, because being a musician, I respected the band.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, which a lot of DJs didn't at that time. So this didn't escape the regional director. And he took me in the office, and I'm expecting a dressing down. He said, how much do you want to do the Hammersmith Palais, which is the Mecca flagship? I went, oh, that means I've got to take this job seriously.
Yeah.
But that's how
So you adapted to DJing, right?
Yeah.
All right. For me, that's like if I was as talented as you, I would never have taken up spinning records.
But at
I
that
spun
time-
records because I couldn't play as well as you, and I have a classical background.
Yeah.
But no way could I make money from it, so I did the second best thing.
But-
You had already done it. Brotherhood of Man, touring.
But there was a little shift going on because
Yes,
the
there was
DJ
no work, right?
remixer was becoming a producer, a
Yeah,
record producer.
yeah.
And
Graham Gold and
so
all
they
that
went
lot.
hand in hand, really. So me being a musician, also knowing what was good for the dance floor and being able to produce this kind of stuff, really.
Yeah.
Your
Good stuff.
commercial,
Yeah,
your
awesome
commercial
place, yeah.
outlook on music.
So
you know?
the late 80s, and I wasn't just doing dance stuff, I produced Frankie Vaughan, the Tweets. It was everything.
Frankie Vaughan are doing tweets. I'm not quite sure about because it's
The
on my
Birdie
phone.
song.
The
That's
tweets,
the
the tweets are there. They're on my phone.
I remember that.
They're big. They're an app. Oh, the Birdie song. Torremolinos. Here
I
we
had
go.
no shame. I actually had no
You
shame.
should have with that one also, but
I did that
it
in
was a
Spain,
hit. It was a
yeah.
hit worldwide. Yeah.
Well, I was working for the guy who actually put that one out.
You didn't choreograph it, did you?
No, I don't. No,
It wasn't much
I
to
did do the
choreograph.
tweets follow-ups. But producing Frankie Vaughan and Wilson Pickett, people like this.
Wilson Pickett.
Yeah.
He'd be the man, right?
Yeah. So it was amazing to be a DJ and to be a producer.
yeah.
hand in hand.
So you kept yourself within that musical bubble.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't sell yourself to the devil to the soul because
And then,
that's how it sounded.
for instance, friends of mine, the Nolans. You know, I met
the Nolan sisters, or
the Nolan sisters. I met up with them once. And I said, "Have you got a record deal at the moment?" They said, "No." I said, "Why don't we do an updated version of I'm in the Mood for Dancing, like a dance,
Leo Sayer.
like a more PWL
Yeah,
sort of."
Leo Sayer. I'm in the mood
No,
for dancing.
you make me feel like dancing.
Oh, sorry.
I'm in the mood for dancing.
Leo Sayer's a nice guy. by the way.
Romancing.
That was their original hit.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So we did that, and would you believe it, rejuvenated their career in Japan. It went to #1 in Ireland, and so there were things like that happening all the time, and it was hilarious to me.
To me, it sounds like in your careers, it's like luck played a certain part. You've got the talent, we know that, right? So that's a given. But the doors opened, and this happened, and that happened, and you took it, right?
I think you said it before.
Yeah.
Tony
It's
Hiller,
it's
my
hard work. yeah.
ex-manager, he instilled in me when I first joined Brotherhood of Man. We're going to write, and you're going to rehearse a lot and stuff. The harder you work, the luckier you're going to get.
Good name for a song.
And he was
harder you
exactly
work.
right. So those doors did open,
Right.
but when people say, "Oh, you're so lucky," I said, "Yeah, but you don't see the work that went into,
Yeah,
leading
yeah.
up to that moment."
And getting recognition to
Moving
meet the
on.
people to
Exactly.
move forward.
Moving on, steps. We've got to answer this
wait.
bloody question. So where did that come in? Because they're a big band.
But
Okay.
what kind of music is it?
Same pop music. Pop
It's
rock.
like ABBA.
Yeah.
A little bit
Right,
ABBA-ish.
okay.
And they had the
Is
dance
that the kind of
routine.
music? You mean you had rock, and you got a story about that as well. But I mean, rock, which you would say like not Deep Purple, that was heavy rock.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe I don't even know what band I can say, but sort of rock
Led
music. Yeah, Led Zeppelin is the prime example.
Yeah. That's
Was
heavy
what was your preference? Was that pop, dance, sort
I
of
loved
music, or-
everything, but I loved Mark Bolan. I thought he was. I loved T-Rex. I loved the Beatles. I loved all that kind of pop stuff, the Sweet and stuff.
Right.
Which
That was glam rock sort of stuff,
if you
yeah.
think about it, Queen got their sound from Sweet. Because
Yeah.
it was the same kind of thing. So people used to influence each other.
Right.
So where did the word rock come from? Like, we were brought up in rock and roll, right? So there wasn't rock back then, right? So how did that, what
Well,
was
that was a friend of mine, Simon Napier Bell, who managed Wham, and he managed the Yardbirds, and he now lives in Thailand here. He's lived here for quite a long time actually, but he invented the word rock, or so he tells me.
It's a good story.
Because he said that when he was managing the Yardbirds, a music magazine called him up and said, "How do you describe their music?" And he said, "Rock." Up until then, it was rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from then on, Led Zeppelin were rock. All of those bands were rock.
I always thought the rock and roll was like the roll was to do with a bit of the dance that went on with the rock, right?
Yeah,
Because they were doing the swing and so you were rocking and you were rolling.
And you were rolling.
And we still say that today. You know, I was out last night rolling. But we won't go into that right now. Yeah. All right. And now, if you don't answer this question now, I'm going to give up. All right?
Okay,
No, I'm going to move on to the next one.
I'm getting it. Okay, right. Here we go. In the early 90s, techno music came in, you know, with all that sort of acid. And,
I know the techno.
Right. Well, I didn't like any of that because there was no music to it. It was just
electronic. It's EDM.
You know,
Lovely.
I thought, what the hell's this? You know, I don't want to be part of that. So I gave up DJing and I did a complete turnaround to listening to songs, and the best songs were coming out of Nashville and country music.
Wow.
So I'd always liked the Eagles and you know and John Fogerty and that kind of like country rock, and I noticed that in America, country music was suddenly becoming more rocky. And
There was
I
a
really
bit of a
loved
crossover thing going on, wasn't
it. Yeah,
there?
so I started going out there to start writing and
Going out there.
To Nashville.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, don't just
I'd go
say that on the
backwards
side
and forwards.
like so. You actually got
That's a
up off
major
your
trip,
ass,
yeah.
went to Nashville
Yes.
to study this music
Yes.
phenomenon.
And write with writers out there. And even though I'd already had hit records, it's funny because they treat it like a science, songwriting like a science. So you'll find some of the best songs ever written are country songs. I Will Always Love You was Dolly Parton wrote that as a country song. It's amazing, you know. If you
I'm a big lover of all this.
Well-
I love it.
What do you mean by science? They have a certain formula behind
not
it?
a formula, but there's not a wasted word. And actual fact, some of the Motown writers as well, Tamla Motown, like
used to
Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
You know, if you listen to Tears of a Clown, there's not a wasted word in it.
Country and Western is a white man's soul.
When you say a wasted word, what do you mean wasted word?
Well, you don't put just in there or, you know, or filler words.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Give it to
every
me, baby.
sentence, it's
Doesn't
very
come into it.
succinct
Yeah.
and it falls on the melody line perfectly. Tears of a Clown is, for me, one of the best written songs to demonstrate
that's
that,
great.
you know? So anyway, so I was learning more and I started writing, and at that time, line dancing was becoming big. This where we get to steps, you see. I'm getting there.
You are?
And so I was writing country songs for line dance records in the UK.
Yes.
And
You know line dancing,
I was
don't you?
kind of like the only person doing it, or one of the only people doing it. Anyway, and people kept saying to me, "Why don't you write a pop song, like a line dance song for a pop group?" And I kept saying, "Oh, I don't know," you know. And I kept trying to think of a title.
So you were actually making these songs for other bands or for other people to play? Or
We
were you
hadn't
just making
done
the
for
songs?
anybody
I
at
was,
this
I was
stage.
the artist, but
Right.
there were some other bands that recorded them. But it was basically me as an artist, and I was just producing them, and they would go on to line dance compilations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then one day I just suddenly thought, they always count dances in as a choreographer 5, 6, 7, 8. They never count them in 1, 2, 3, 4 like a musician would.
Yeah.
So I went, that's the title, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I set about writing the song. And there was a guy, a friend who I've been put in touch with, who was organising the National Line Dance Championships, called Steve Crosby. And he had a company called Boot Scoot. So Boot Scooting Baby, there you go. And he had this T-shirt with lip, you know the Coke advert, lip smacking, thirst quenching, never tasting. Well, he had foot kicking, finger clicking, leather slapping, you know, all these words. And I went, who wrote those lyrics? He said, I did. I said, right, I'm nicking them, but don't worry, you'll get a writing credit because that's great. I can really put that into a song. So I put this song together, and it was just a bit of a laugh. And a friend of mine who I had played it to when I was just putting it together, he listened to it and he went, Barry, whatever you're drinking, put more tonic in it.
I get told that. Yeah.
So then, together with Steve Crosby, because he was so in touch with the line dancing scene, I said, why don't we put a group together, a pop group
Here we come. And you did.
And we called it Steps, but it was a working title.
Yeah,
and we got turned down by every major label, including Simon Cowell, who
Simon, he turned it down.
I'd had hits with before,
Yeah.
at least Simon very well. And he said, no, I'm not sure, it's a bit cheesy. I said, well,
He likes
so
cheese.
what, you know. And
Back then he did.
Eventually, a couple of the members of the group that we put together then fell up by the wayside. We auditioned again, and H and Lisa stayed, and we got the others in, and it's that lineup stayed until today.
Right.
So we got it right.
Was their biggest hit? You think? Well, in the sense
The
of
two
sales?
biggest hits were 5, 6, 7, 8, the original
How
one.
did that go? Quick.
My boot scooting baby is driving me crazy. My obsession from a western. My dance floor date. My rodeo Romeo. A cowboy got from head to toe. When I make you mine, but I get in line. 5, 6, 7, 8.
By the left. Yeah, right. I get it. Yeah,
But I did it to a dance beat, not a country and western beat. You know?
yeah.
And that's what really made it into a pop record.
Okay.
And it was in the charts, top 20 for 16 weeks.
Wow.
That's 4 months. Unheard of at that particular time. And it was
UK and US, or
not the US, but pretty much the rest of the world. Went to number one in Australia. And Pete Waterman, who signed the group eventually to Jive Records, and we loved that because Britney Spears was on it, Backstreet Boys were on Jive. You know, it was a pop label. It wasn't a country label.
They were great. Yeah.
Gave us a bit of credibility. And after that record had been in the charts for so long, we were writing songs similar to it, which is what you would normally do. And he says, you know, lads, he says, you've already done your follow-up. It's been in the charts for so long, but what you've put together here is ABBA on speed. And that remark suddenly changed everything. So we said, well, let's do boy girl, you know, like Brotherhood of Man, ABBA type material, but you know, with dance steps.
Yeah.
And that's what, and the kids just loved it. They loved copying
Start of the boy bands, except they were girls.
Sorry, does that answer your question?
I forgot what the question was. Right, now I'm moving on.
Well, and in answer to your earlier question, I've earned far more money from Steps than I did from Brotherhood of Man.
Bet your letterbox keeps getting all these royalty checks.
So would you say that was your peak of your band career? Yeah, Steps.
Well, I wasn't actually in it, although I was on the original contract as a producer.
Right.
But I would say that 5, 6, 7, 8 is my biggest earning song.
Right.
Out of all the songs.
Moving on. And we could spend on this next subject, which we're going to have 2 minutes for, which is, I think, the most interesting, is writing. I've talked to a lot of musicians, right? Top musicians, about their writing process and everything else. And for me, who cannot write a song, I'd love to write. I can write a bit of poetry, but writing songs, I've done lyrics, I don't know.
Yeah.
How does it come to you? Lyrics first? Do you find, are you sat on the loo and something comes to you, middle of the night? No, I'm going into the studio, I've got to write a bloody song. What happens? What's the process?
Now, I've done a lot of songwriting seminars, and the first thing I always say is rule 1 of songwriting, there isn't one. It can happen all the ways you just said, right? There's so many different ways that you can get inspiration for a song. My method is I usually, does not always, but usually start with a title, like I did with 5, 6, 7, 8. Because I always think that that's the pivotal part of it.
Okay.
And I always remember when I was discussing with Pete Waterman about this, and he used to think of the title and what it would look like on the record.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Love in the First Degree, you know, a Bananarama song. That would look good in the middle of the record.
Pete Waterman, if you don't know, is from Stike. What was the three of
Stock
them?
Aitken and Waterman.
Stock Aitken, which
had
as a
many
DJ, all my labels had their name on them. Most of it, they came.
But
Rick Astley.
in the late 80s, they were the kings of pop.
Rick Astley, yeah.
So, one thing I was going to ask is, you know, I'm sure everybody has actually, this would be a good song to get something in their head, yeah, and they go, but then they go, I'm going to have to write it. And they go, how the hell do they write it down, or how do they remember?
Yeah, so you've got the
tune?
title. So what goes from there?
How I do it is I think of all of the words that go along with that subject, and I want to put those words into the song somewhere. So then I've got kind of like a lyrical idea. Melody line, I kind of think of, you say about it being inspired by another band or something.
Yeah.
I think about what type of song do I want it to be. So is it going to be a reggae song? Is it going to be a country song? Is it going to be a ballad?
That's rhythm, right?
So you think about the rhythm and you have that going in your head. And then the more you write, it's one of those things, the more you write, the easier it becomes. Doesn't mean to say it's going to be a hit record.
So you put these words, once you've got the lyrics down then you put that to music afterwards.
Sometimes
music comes
Sometimes I have a
the other way around?
melody line
Yeah.
to go along with
And
the
those words
title.
will fit.
How do you remember the melody line?
Oh,
Do
there's
you
a-
go and write it down? And
Well, that comes from like when I said I developed my ear when I was young.
no, but you've got this. Oh, this is a really good riff or whatever it is. And do you go and write this? The
Would you have a little recorder? You go in a car when
Yeah.
you're driving. Go, oh, that's
In
a
the
good.
toilet.
I used
Yeah.
to do that. And very often we would record at the piano or something. If we'd written a song, we would put it down onto a tape recorder. But actually, I find nowadays I actually do remember them.
Right.
And one good point to remember is if it's a good song, you're going to remember it.
Because it might be just be one section, the chorus or whatever it is. You've
The hook line sort
yeah,
of thing.
and you've got that in your mind. And I've always wondered how the hell people do that. You see, they're on the couch, they're doing, recording it with a guitar and all stuff. And I go, that doesn't bloody work like that. You go along with
That doesn't work for
in
you.
your car, on the toilet, whatever it is, yeah. And something comes to mind, you go, that'd be good because you're confident in yourself that you can actually do something.
The biggest problem is that you never really know. You just have to do whatever
fun part, isn't it?
ever feels right to you. You know.
I don't think you say,
It's
I'm
the-
going to make a
it's
a
the
star
public that will
song.
If
tell
I
you.
sat you in the next studio, right, Dan, and I said, right, here's a coffee and a sausage roll,
Yeah.
and I sit down, back, calm, write a song in half an hour,
could
come
do
out
it.
with a song, you could do it,
I
right?
could do it.
Elton John says
So
he
you
can do
have
it.
your process in your mind.
I could do it
From the
I'm
lyrics.
not saying how good it would be.
No,
Yeah.
no, but
I
you
know,
could
but
do
it
it.
wasn't until a lot
Yeah,
of people
we
listened
couldn't
to
do
it.
it. We
really.
couldn't
I
do
mean,
it.
like you saying before, you thought that song wouldn't be all that good, and then it suddenly became a hit. Yeah, it comes down to perception of the people.
This is a good story. When I was writing with Tony Hiller, and I went into his his house in London, and I said, "What are we going to write today?" He says, "Well, I've just heard Diana Ross is looking for songs at the moment. You know, okay. Well, what do I want to hear Diana Ross singing?" And I love You Can't Hurry, love, bum 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 bum. You know, let's start with dun dun dun.
Yeah.
And we ended up writing this song, which was perfect for Diana Ross. She never recorded it, but Sonia did, and it was Simon Cowell who A&R'd her.
Yeah.
And he loved the song. A song called Only Fools Never Fall in Love.
Yeah, no, that's
charted.
Yeah.
So, you just never know.
So what you're saying is like Elton John with Bernie Taupin writes the lyrics and he writes this, so he gets the creativity first with 30 different pages of lyrics,
Yeah.
then he'll write.
That's
you could be
their
doing
method.
it. That's their process, their method. Yeah.
And that's why I said there is no right or wrong way.
Well, as we're Bangkok Chitchat and we are all about Thailand because we actually broadcast from Thailand. We could go talking forever. So I've really got to. The last one is, why did you come to... Well, first of all, when did you come to Thailand? Why did you come to Thailand? And how's Thailand going for you?
Okay, I first came to Thailand in 2006. And that was because I was always going to America. I never came east. I always went west, from the UK. And some friends of mine, they were always telling me about Thailand, how great it was. And I thought, maybe one day, I should do it. And being a keen tennis player, I had to have keyhole surgery on my knees. And so then I couldn't play tennis for a month. I thought, that's it, I'm going on holiday. Let's go to Thailand, because these friends of mine are always going on
weather's
about,
good there as
banging
well.
on about how good it is. And I'll just rest up. And went to Koh Samui, absolutely loved it. And a friend of mine had just bought a house in Pattaya. And he said, well, if you love this, you probably love Pattaya. So I went back.
When was this?
2006, early 2007. And then I went back to the UK. I was doing these albums for a company called Gut Records. And they were actually for 5 to 8 year olds, but marketed on TV, sold through all the big supermarkets. It was actually a good deal to have when nobody else had a record deal at that time. It's very hard to get a record deal. And I remember I had this real chunk of work. I had to record every day for about a month to get this album finished.
Oh,
and by the end of it, I was just like, I said, I'm coming. I phoned him up. I said, is your house finished yet? He said, yes. I said, can I come and stay in it? Come with you? And I said, have you got a guest room? He said, oh, yeah, I've got 2 guest rooms. I said, well, can I come? And he said, yes, of course you can. So I just got on the next flight, went to Pattaya, and I just had a great time. And I just thought, how lovely is this? This has got everything. This place has absolutely everything. It's got the ocean. I love the ocean. It's got the beach. It's got restaurants. There's fun. It's like New Year's Eve every night. It was then anyway.
We don't mention the C word here. We've had enough of that.
And then I went back a couple more times, and the house that he had built and he bought, I was in the pool one day with a beer, as you do, and I was thinking, if I came over here, if I moved over here just for the winter, because I hated the British winters. That was the big motivating factor.
Which is 9 months of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes 12 months.
Especially in Scotland,
And I was looking at the house and I was thinking, this is perfect. It's got a swimming pool, I could have that as my studio and blah, blah. And then he came out with this bombshell that he's going to sell it and he's building a bigger house just nearby.
Another door opens for you to walk through.
Well, sell this to me for what you paid for it, and I'll give you
another
cash.
Door open for you, bro.
And I'm still in that house.
Right.
And of course, being off the what's the word?
Outside of the city.
Well, being outside of Europe, London, whatever. But with today's technology, it doesn't matter.
That was the other deciding factor.
Yeah.
Because those albums that I was doing for Gut Records in London, you used to have to then, once you finished it, travel up to London, go to a mastering room, get the tracks mastered, deliver them to the record company. Then one day they said, oh no, you can just upload them to our server. And I'm going, well, what's that then? They said, well, you just, we'll give you an HTTP site. You upload them onto there, And when I did it, and I didn't have to go up to London at all.
Yeah.
I was in Southampton then.
Yeah.
And I went, that's amazing. I could do this anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually was happening with a lot of technology. A lot of people just travelling around. But what are your plans for the future? What do you see?
Staying here.
Well, okay, I'm talking about music-wise.
At the moment, if you want to know what I'm doing right now, I've just had a couple of hit records from my last albums. So I've had 3 albums I put together recently, and the COVID thing actually helped me to stay at home and actually produce some songs.
Knuckle down, write some stuff, mate. Yeah.
And I did come up just before the lockdown last year. I came up with an idea of doing this early '60s, going back to my love of the early '60s songs, of doing some early '60s tracks, a bit like as a kind of homage to Ready Steady Go.
Cool.
Which was a TV program.
Now everybody,
with black and white.
A lot of our viewers. No, I'm not going to. Because Ready Steady Go was not jukebox jury.
It was like, an iconic.
It was what was it?
Music show.
Yeah.
With the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Animals.
It was an early Top of the Pops,
Cilla
wasn't
Black.
it? Yeah.
And it was just great to watch. It was like a club. Looking at a club with bands, Do you remember it?
No, I've seen it.
You're too young.
No, I've seen it.
I can't remember it.
Sure.
I mean, I remember the name. I can't remember seeing it.
And I was going to go into a studio with a band and put some songs together and record it
like what songs?
Like they did in those days.
What songs? Like what? Not obviously their songs, but what rhythm? So 60 stuff was like all 3-minute long songs.
Yeah, like the Dave Clark 5, like
bits and pieces.
Exactly, or Glad All Over,
And I'm feeling Crystal Palace song.
Like some of the early Beatles songs.
See, a lot of this, I know you both are smiling at this, but in the 60s, you had a revival we called the Mod Revival.
Yeah.
Right? And all that music comes back.
I'll tell you why.
Kinks and things like that, yeah? And I think it's going to come back again.
Straight away, you see.
Ray Davis is one of the greatest songwriters.
Will it come back again? I think it will.
Well, let me tell you why it will never die. Well, that's a good line, isn't it?
Do you want to go into that room I told you about?
Quick.
Yeah, copyright.
The reason is because in those days there was no special technology,
right?
Computers
It was
or drum
raw.
machines.
It was raw.
So therefore, every song had to be a good song. And if you go back to the 60s, that's why these songs live on.
Where was the sunset?
Waterloo. I didn't realise it was a quiz show as well.
No, you got me going off camera when you're talking about the House of the Rising Sun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Listen, we've got we're way out of time.
So anyway, I'm doing an album like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And we're going to finish off with
finally doing it.
And you're going to keep doing basically this is your passion. So you're never going to till the day you drop. Yeah?
Absolutely. All the time that I have fun doing it.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line with it is I must have fun
because you
while
have
I'm doing
passion
it.
for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything comes of it, great.
Perfect.
Barry, listen, we wish you all the best. We do want you back. Will you come back? Because we got so much other stuff
That's a good
to talk
excuse
about.
to come up to the Big Mango.
Yeah, so it's been a pleasure. I really finish off with something special that we've never done before because we've never had copyright on music. So it's a first of Bangkok Chitchat. But I'd like to thank the viewers for watching. Camera this one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share and all that stuff. I hope you enjoyed it because you don't often get guys like this that you can sort of see the what happens behind the scenes and everything. So once again, Barry, would you introduce this video, please?
Okay, well, this is a song which actually I wrote during the days that I was with Brotherhood of Man, and it was on an album which we recorded for EMI. And the head of EMI changed. The first head of EMI loved Brotherhood of Man. The second one didn't. So he didn't promote the album. So there was a few songs on that album which I always thought were really first class and were never promoted. So I thought I'd redo it. Do a new version. And would you believe it? It was a hit last year. So he was wrong.
Enjoy.
Played a trick on me. It must be destiny. Now we're not meant to be. Say goodbye to all the things we had. The good has turned to bad, and now it's plain to see. Holding on, hoping to find that I was wrong. I gotta be strong. Cry, cry, baby, why do I cry? Why do I spend all these lonely nights waiting for you? Cry, cry, baby, I don't know why. Whatever happened to days gone by, 'cause all I do is cry. Should I stay or should I run away? There's nothing left for me except another day. Maybe time will bring us back again, and if it don't work out, then it must be the end. Holding on, hoping to find that I was wrong. I gotta be strong. Cry, cry, baby.